This is the Steve Austin Show sponsor who deserves a big, oh, hell yeah, Diamond Dallas Page. And that's because Dallas is going into the WWE Hall of Fame. And if there was ever a yoga Hall of Fame, he'd be inducted there too. Because his DDP yoga program has helped thousands of lives and saved countless more. If you're looking for some help and motivation with your health and fitness plan, Dallas and DDPY are your answer. Dallas knows how hard it is to get on that path to healthier living and stick to it. And that's why he created the DDPY program, which is more than just a damn workout. Dallas gives you all the tools and information you need to eat better, exercise, and monitor your progress. He also offers plenty of his own personal motivation. And right now, he's offering y'all 25% off the DDPY DVDs, the DDP Yoga Now app, and all DDPY swag. You can get 25% off t-shirts, mats, heart monitors, hats, and more. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin, and that's not all. If you buy the DDPY Max Pack today, you'll get 50% off your second copy. So that's 50% off the 25% you're already getting. That's a huge savings. And, of course, if you buy the DDPY DVDs 25% off, you still get 3 free months of the DDP Yoga Now app. So take control of your own health and fitness. Get on the DDPY program today and take advantage of this huge sale. 25% off DDPY and all related merch at ddpyoga.com/Austin. That's ddpyoga.com/Austin.
The following program is a podcast1.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I'm coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting here in my office at 317 Gimmick Street. Yep, that's right. Right next door to my house. It's being remodeled. The 3 big-ass doors are putting in to be installed today. They might get one of them in, maybe 2. Holy smokes, they've been at it since about 7:30 this morning, sawing the hell out of my house. It sounds like they're cutting my house in 2. I'm telling you, I might have just got a bulldozer and blazed my whole house down and started from scratch. That's what it sounds like. But nonetheless, the results will be really cool when they finish it. And they've been moving along. I think they got the tile up in my bathroom. They got 2 sides of the tile up in Kristen's bathroom. They're going to do the floors, or the tile floors. And the floors to the house will be the last thing they do. But those had just arrived last week. And when you get those wood floors, or whatever kind of wood floors they are, they have to acclimate to get used to being in the atmosphere that your house is at. So all of the wood floors are over there acclimating, getting used to 316 Gimmick Street weather. And so they'll start throwing those down maybe in a couple of weeks. But I'll tell you what, I've grown accustomed to this house that I'm podcasting from. It's a nice space, but I'm ready to move back into our regular house. Every single time I take the dogs over there to go to the bathroom, they enjoy it too. And when we go over there to get my workout in, I always take Hershey and Mula with me. And, man, they walk around the house, and I know they're thinking, what in the F is going on here? What did y'all do to our house? Anyway, when they know that they're over there, they know that they're in their regular house, and they love being in their yard. So I'll be damned. Right now, I'm sitting in this little bedroom that I have turned into my office at 317 Gimmick Street. And I would like to be sitting in my comfortable chair, but Hershey, the Wonder Dog, is sound asleep. I've got my Zoom H4n recorder on the edge of the chair. If you go to my Instagram account, Steve Austin BSR, you can see the picture I just posted of her. She's sleeping her fool head off. I thought maybe I'd interview her for today's show, but she's having none of it. She's failed to appear, and she's sleeping. So if you hear her snoring in the background, if you hear a bunch of sawing in the background, I don't think you can because of the microphone system I use. That's what's going on. Well, it's Monday as I record this podcast. It's going to be interesting to see what the WWE does tonight on Monday Night Raw. Last night, I guess, man, was Fastlane 2017, the last pay-per-view before WrestleMania. And I can't remember where it was from. Was from Milwaukee. Man, that pay-per-view left, in my mind, a lot to be desired. It was, sometimes you have those pay-per-views where you can just rave about them just because everybody's on, And then this was just a classic case of some people being on and some people not being on. And I just kind of scanned through the whole thing. It was on the network. Had a lot of other stuff going on, so I was trying to pay attention so I could talk about it a little bit. Thought about trying to break it down, but it was a very average pay-per-view. Guys and gals all worked hard. I probably the things that stood out to me in these, the performances were all, okay. The things that stood out to me, I thought Braun Strowman had a good night. Roman had a good night. The thing I hated about that match, when Braun Strowman jumped off the top turnbuckle. Braun Strowman is a legitimate 365-pound, give or take, plus or minus pound guy. If you weigh 365 pounds in that neighborhood, you don't jump off the top rope. I'll never forget it. Probably was 94, 95. I was over in Japan on a 3-week tour with Dave Malenko, Arn Anderson, hell, a bunch of guys. We was over on a 3-week tour, and I jumped off the top rope, and a guy moved, just like Roman Reigns moved. And Braun Strowman came crashing down just like I crashed down and tore my right tricep off my arm. That was the last time I ever jumped off the top rope, if I remember correctly. But I know why they had him jump off the top rope. It was to protect him, because they needed to protect Roman and build Roman to go into WrestleMania, because I guess he's taking on The Undertaker. So they need him, head full of steam. I do not disagree with the finish of the match. Roman needed to win. He needed to win strong, but you needed to protect the big guy. And the big guy, I'm not talking about the big dog, I'm talking about the big guy, the big man, Braun Strowman, who's legitimately one of the strongest guys walking planet Earth. He's a physical specimen, great athletic ability. I think this guy is going to be one of the top guys for a long time to come if he can continue to pick up the business the way he has. The guy's doing outstanding, but I just disagree with whoever said, hey, jump off the top rope, miss, and then, here comes the spear. Never forget that this is one of the strongest men on the planet. Yeah, you've got to protect him, but let him screw himself some other way. Let something else backfire on him. Don't turn him into a high flyer at 365. Just don't do it. It's not going to work. If you look at the exciting things that I did in the vein of jumping off a top turnbuckle as Stone Cold Steve Austin, you'd be very hard to find for the footage of me doing spectacular stuff off the top rope. And that being said, I drew money. So did Hulk Hogan. He never came off the top rope. Braun Strowman has a chance to be able to be in a position in a year or two to draw big money. He doesn't need to have his big ass on top of a turnbuckle, jumping off and missing a frog splash, a splash, whatever kind of splash you want to call it. I did not like that. But again, I understand that they had to make Roman win to go into WrestleMania, and I don't think the loss really took any of the luster off Braun Strowman. Sometimes you just know what's up. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose. They just could have thought of a better way for this guy to lose. His performance has, the last few months, half year, whatever it's been, has been outstanding. He seems to really be taking this. He's eating, living, sleeping, breathing the business. So he's still green, but god dang, he's coming along, and I'm proud of him. So wish him all the best in the world. Wish Roman the best in the world as they head into WrestleMania with their respective matches. We'll see what happens with Braun Strowman, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with Roman Reigns on the big stage at WrestleMania, just some 30-some-odd days away, whatever it is. And then what else caught my eye was the Charlotte Bayley match. The match in the beginning, clunky. Let's just call it what it was. Love both women. Just love both women. But the match was clunky. I really enjoyed the finish because Sasha Banks comes out, and man, I can smell an angle that's going to go down, at WrestleMania. And I'm not going to go ahead and just say what I think is going to happen, but I think we all know what's going to happen. And in an earlier match, Sasha getting a great win over Nia Jax. I enjoyed that performance because that was a powerful woman in Nia Jax, who's still pretty green, but she's going to be very good too. And here was Sasha Banks selling, and eking out the win at the end. And so it was just a great job. They did what they needed to do to tell the story. Nia Jax is so big and so powerful and so strong, and it was what it was. Sasha Banks has a great physique. She's a really smooth worker, but she played the part of the underdog, which is what she was, because she gave up a lot of body weight. Nia Jax, like I said, she's still green, but she's really coming along. I like it when she's aggressive. She's cleaning up a lot of things, and she's going to be a big-time player, as both women are. And, and going back to Charlotte and Bayley, I smell something, when Sasha came out, with a little bit of distraction to help that win. I like the finish of the Bayley-Charlotte match. Thought that was exciting. What's more exciting is what's going to come out of that, because I smell a rat, and a rat is coming, and there'll be an old switcherooski, and someone will be in familiar territory. That's my prediction, without going into specifics. Other than that, man, there's some good performances in there. The Kevin Owens-Goldberg thing was, you knew Goldberg had to win because he was going in to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. And that's going to be interesting to see what kind of time that they can put in on that match on the big stage, WrestleMania 33 in Orlando. KO has worked his ass off. Jericho comes, he gets distracted. Boom, there's a spear and a jackhammer, and it's 1, 2, 3, it's all over. And to me, the Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho stuff has been some of the most, it has been for me, the most entertaining stuff on Monday Night Raw for quite some time. So see what they set those guys up for at WrestleMania, see what comes out of that. Hated to see KO lose the Universal title just because I'm a big KO fan. Glad to see Goldberg win the Universal title because Bill is a good friend of mine. So, I had a vested interest in the finish of the match because I like both guys. I'm friends with both guys. And, hey, man, I know it's all storylines, but you got to see where everything's going. But you can see why they're doing the things they're doing to keep moving the chess pieces on the board as they go to WrestleMania. There was some matches there in the middle of the card, and unannounced matches that just happened. Stephanie was on a speakerphone. Mick was running the show. Came out of the blue. I didn't know whether to make heads or tails out of them because I didn't know what was going on. I just DVR Raw. I don't watch it all. I try to watch some of the main players do matches or cut promos in certain circumstances. So I didn't really follow what was going on with the middle part of that pay-per-view with respect to some of those matches. No disrespect to the guys. I love all the guys, but I was a little bit confused. But anyway, it was a very, very average pay-per-view to head into WrestleMania. Hopefully WrestleMania or these next, 3 Raws, what's it going to be, to lead into Mania or Lights Out, and they really get things going. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting WrestleMania. I will be watching Raw. As I speak, I will have watched Raw. I'll be watching SmackDown the day that you're able to first download the show on Tuesday to see what they do with the SmackDown players and see where those storylines are going. But anyway, stop rambling here. I'll tell you what, man. I started really getting into a band called Five Finger Death Punch. And I was on YouTube like I always am. I recommended this video a long time ago. It's Five Finger Death Punch, and they did a cover of Bad Company's song, Bad Company. And, man, with the tone that these guys play in, with the way, what's his name, the lead singer, Ivan Moody, that damn voice of his, that guy can sing his ass off. He's got a very powerful voice, and he's just a perfect fit for that band. And, hell, I'll be damned if, Stacy, my producer, got in touch with Zoltan Bathory, and Zoltan lives in Vegas. He's from Hungary, and you'll hear about him coming over from Hungary, how he came about his first guitar, and ended up putting together Five Finger Death Punch. And it turns out Zoltan lives in Las Vegas. He also has a yacht, a big-ass yacht, in, the area that I live in. So, man, I got my recording stuff and headed over to his boat. And, man, it was very impressive. Dude has a badass boat. We just sat there and kicked it back and just shot the breeze, and that's the conversation you're going to hear today. Guitarist and a founder of Five Finger Death Punch, one of my favorite bands going these days. It was good to, Five Finger Death Punch has been around since about 2006, I believe was their first album. It could have been 2007. But I just dig that really heavy, groovy sound with hooks and cool lyrics, and they do great videos. Most of their videos on YouTube have 30, 40 million views. So, man, they're touring. They're highly successful. They're running hot right now. And it's hard to sell music these days from what I gather from the music industry, but they're very hot. Love their merch, love all the stuff that they're doing, and love the sound of their music. So I go over to his boat. Zoltan Bather and I, shooting the breeze, is what you're going to hear today. But before we get to Zoltan, let me take care of one of the sponsors who's helping guys all across this great planet smell better, and that's Hanes with Fresh IQ. Underwear is important to all of us, and at the end of a long day, our socks, undershirts, and underwear, they start to develop a certain aroma. Let's call it a funk. We all suffer from the funk from time to time, and it happens to everyone. It's a fact of life. So that's why Hanes invented Fresh IQ. Advanced odor protection technology. Hanes with Fresh IQ attacks bacteria and keeps fabric from absorbing the funk and other unpleasant aromas. That means your socks, t-shirts, and boxers smell fresher and longer. So forget smartwatches and fitness trackers. This is the latest and greatest in wearable tech. The underwearable wonder of odor-controlling Hanes with Fresh IQ Advanced Odor Protection Technology. And right now, you can get 25% off your purchase of Hanes with Fresh IQ products. Just use the promo code FRESHAUSTIN. Some exclusions apply. So replace your old ratty boxer briefs, your yellowed T-shirts, and mismatched socks. There's never been a better time to upgrade your obsolete undergarments with all new Fresh IQ socks, shirts, and underwear from Hanes. America's #1 underwear. Just go to Hanes.com and use the promo code FRESHAUSTIN and get 25% off your order of Hanes with Fresh IQ. Hanes with Fresh IQ Advanced Odor Protection Technology, the smart way to stay fresh. Everybody's got a to-do list. Drop off the dry cleaning, pick up some milk. Here's one for you. Let's save hundreds of dollars on car insurance. And the good thing is, you don't have to drop off or pick up anything. All you have to do is go to Geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. Extra money in your pocket? It just may be the most rewarding to-do you do today.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, I made it over here. I'm sitting here with Zoltan Bathory, founder guitarist for Five Finger Death Punch. Man, I just got turned on to you guys a couple of months ago. I've been hearing your name for a long time, but then I really started listening to the music, and I was like, because, man, I'm a big hair metal guy, and some of the speed metal stuff, and then big country music guy as well. Then all of a sudden the sound just kind of disappeared for me, and I was just wondering what the next damn band I was going to listen to, and I really started listening to y'all stuff. And right now, the new album's out, Got You Six.
Yep.
I know you're going to go out in May and start supporting that. So we're sitting here in Marina Del Rey, about a mile from my house. I tried to get over here and I got lost, turned around. Siri was telling me to take a right down at Ocean. I said, that's away from the water.
Siri is fake news, man.
God dang. Anyway, welcome to the show, and thank you for welcoming me to your boat.
Absolutely.
When you said you had a boat out here, I was thinking, okay, now what kind of boats you got? 'Cause I got a jet ski out here, but we can't do a podcast on a jet ski. With your busy schedule and your story, because I want to talk about the whole thing as much as you got time for, coming over here from Hungary, and all of a sudden you landed in the United States, or come out to get on your boat, and you said, hey, man, when I first came here to the United States, I was in New York helping sell your merchandise, meaning
correct.
me.
Yes.
How in the hell did that happen?
Well, it's like, obviously I kind of escaped communism, right? And so I came to from Hungary. I was actually one of those guys that the Statue of Liberty actually did mean a lot to me when I saw, like, oh my God, this is the place where if I line up to the, the wall, it's probably for a photograph, not anything else, So it really meant a lot to me. And, obviously I came to New York and tried to survive, and I was an immigrant trying to learn to speak English. And, I was always an artist, and so I was looking for jobs and whatnot. And and basically I got a job at a merchandising company. I paint, I do all kind of digital art and whatnot. And the merchandising company was doing WWF. It used to be called WWF at the time. So I was doing your merchandise. So it was like the Steve Austin shirts. I was doing Saber, Steve Austin, Mankind at the time. So basically the old school crew, and that was my first job. So it's pretty funny. Another time that we almost met when you were on the cover of Muscle and Fitness magazine, right? And you were wearing my clothing line. By then I had my own clothing line, Alpha Dog, and you were wearing our shirts. That was the merchandise that you were wearing on the cover.
I'll be damned.
So the third time now, here we are on the boat.
Man, how was it growing up in Hungary? And what age did you come over here? Because did you come by yourself or with your family?
Well, basically, just starting with Hungary, it was a communist country, so it was, oppressed. And then I was one of those guys who people thought I was crazy because I always said, like, I'm going to go to America and I'm going to do this and this and this. And, we didn't even have passports. So when you would say something like that, people would be like, okay, you're crazy. I just didn't accept that. I just couldn't accept that this is it. I'm going to always live in this country with the borders. We have a minefield and a trigger-happy border patrol. So this is real, and I can't get out of here. And I couldn't accept that. So my whole life, it was sort of since I was like 5-6 years old, it was a training session. Like, okay, I have to study, I have to be smart, I have to be strong, I have to train. I was training martial arts, I have to play guitar, I have to learn everything I can. So to have a chance to even get out there and make something of myself. So I always had this attitude, and
at 5 or 6, that's a hell of an attitude to have. Because at 5 or 6, most kids are just used to tumbling around, chasing each other, and just acting crazy.
It's a pit bull cradle there, because the way our education is set up, it's a very bureaucratic country, and if you don't study, if you don't do good in school, you can't even get into high school. After high school is not a right; it's a privilege over there. So if in elementary school you didn't have a grade of 4.0 average, you can't get into high school. So they were not kidding around. So like a 10 years old kid already knows that if I screw up now, that's it. My life is done. And so we had that attitude. And and when you live in those circumstances, when everybody's the government is lying, this is all crap, and you're already aware of that. I mean, I remember like I was 6-7 years old, and we were watching TV, and I could see, like, we had one TV channel. So that's one TV channel, black and white, right? And it was generally like this communist propaganda and just crazy stuff, right? And I remember there was a strike. The Americans, the unions were on strike. And I remember the propaganda coming to us like, look, the Americans are not happy. The bourgeois, oppressing the people, and, they rise up against the capitalism, and, this is over. Finally, the Americans will rise up. And I'm like 7 at this time, and I look at my dad. I'm like, Dad, in America, people can go out on the street and strike, Yeah. So that's how we were learning. I saw between the lines. I understood, like, okay, this is not true. This is all fake, and you kind of grow up that way. You learn to read between the lines, and I was literally in my own training camp. Like, I'm getting ready. I'm gonna get there, and on the second communism collapsed, I was probably the first batch of people who had passports. So I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to chase my dreams.
At what age was that?
Actually, I was by then. I was like 20. Somewhere in there.
So you went through high school?
I went to high school. I finished college.
Yeah. So what'd you get a degree in?
I have I have a commercial art. So actually, I have a degree of making your merchandise, and I'm doing the band's merchandise, and
Okay, but so you applied yourself. You got your degree. You're very smart, but you worked hard at it as well.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, so then, man, and learning how to play guitar. I mean, because I heard you learned how to play guitar by playing air guitar, and you actually built your first guitar.
That is true.
How in the hell did you do that?
So, to get a guitar, I mean, like, at the time, imagine somebody in Hungary, probably the average pay was maybe like $50 a month. I mean, there's no way that you're gonna get a guitar. That was somebody's salary. So for me to get a decent guitar, it was out of the question. And I found this second-hand broken guitar. I took the neck of the guitar, I took a jigsaw and then literally I hit the coffee table at home. I took my parents' coffee table and made a guitar out of it, and I assembled it. It was unplayable. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. And but it was a guitar, and it's kind of like so many times when you just the fact that I had it was one step closer to the goal. You know what I mean? Like I knew that, okay, I'm far away, but at least it's one more step. Every inch I can take, I'm going to take it. So that was my unplayable guitar for about 2-3 years before I got like a decent guitar that was, I could develop, and, I was just playing guitar. On
that original guitar, did you try to pick up
Oh,
some
it had
frets on
pickups, everything.
Everything was so it worked?
So the neck was from a guitar.
Okay.
That was a second hand, not just a broken crappy guitar, but at least I had the neck.
Yeah.
So I made the body, and I screwed the whole thing together, and I was trying to figure out where the bridge goes, and I was looking at other guitars, so I could measure things. It was okay. It was never kind of correct, but good enough that I could start something.
When you got your first guitar, what did you end up getting, and what type of amplifier were you using?
So amplifiers, we built our own amplifiers out of radios. So we we were like, we were really, going for it. So we made amplifiers out of old radios, and then I also have a degree in microelectronics. So we would, like in my high school, when I was going to high school.
Microelectronics?
Well, it's supposed to be able to build amplifiers, so it's basically on electronic engineering, and so when we go to high school, in a high school you get a high school diploma and another diploma. It's a skill, so I can design circuits, and so we would build our own distortion pedals, and it was just, and it was all crap. It was total crap, but but that was the only way. Look, it's a very different mind state from coming from the East and living in the West. Because in the West, when you're trying to achieve something, generally people make a list. Like, okay, if I have to go to the moon, then I need, nitrogen, I need this and this and this, and, and you can make a wish list what you need. For us, it's like, okay, what's in the garage? Okay, we have a broomstick, a shoe, some gasoline. Okay, let's see how far we can go. So it's, so you kind of look at what you already have and then go from there. And I think that helped my whole career, that I never reached for things that are impossible or or outside of the reach, because then I'm waiting for the list to become true forever.
Right.
So I just look at, okay, this is what we have, and we go with that.
From a musical standpoint, what were you listening to back then that influenced you as far as a guitar player, or just your taste in music and how the Death Punch sound end up evolving into? A lot of questions there. What did you listen to starting off?
I was actually originally the first musical love I had was punk music. I was listening to British punk music from the UK subs, Exploited, GBH, and all the obscure things like Manufactured Romance. These are all unknown British punk bands. And then there was this band called Iron Maiden. And when Iron Maiden came, the first singer, Paul Di'Anno, sounded like a punk singer. He was kind of a punk guy. Yeah. So to me, Iron Maiden was a punk band with sophisticated guitars, and that was like, wow, this sounds different, because again, I was growing up in communism, so for us it was the rebellion.
Yeah.
So that's why we were punks, like rebel, burn down the system. My parents were in the military. They were scared. They were like, oh my God, you're gonna get us arrested, because that was a real thing too, and I was always, we're gonna grow up and burn down the system, so I was listening to punk music, and Iron Maiden was the first band to me when, wow, this sounds different, and so I kind of scooted over to metal, and then I started to discover heavy metal, Judas Priest and all those bands, and then from them probably Accept was one of my favorite bands. Dirk Schneider. I loved Accept. That was one of my main influences. And then I started to spread into everything, because we didn't have records, but we were tape traders. So somebody would always sneak in, tapes into the country, because rock music was frowned upon. It was never on the radio ever for any reason. And so we would, somebody would sneak in tapes, and we would copy it, and that was our,
So then, who did you look to as a guitar role model, or someone that you might say, okay, this was an influence for me? You built your own guitar, or did you self-teach yourself to play guitar?
I self-taught myself, and just trying to pick up things, how listening to it and how it played, and try to figure it out. The influence of the Iron Maiden, Accept was definitely a massive influence on me, because I really liked the songwriting there, the way those guys were playing. Wolf, awesome guitarist. I really dig him. And then when once I started to develop, when I was like 16, 17, then I started to, discover the guitar players. And then I became like, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Marty Friedman and Cacophony and all these guitar players who would really play. And so I started to go there. And I really tried to learn, like, okay, well, nobody can touch Yngwie. So, that was a question. So there was a forever frustration, like, okay, I can never play this. If I have 4 hands, I can play this, right? And so but I went there, I learned, I got pretty good at it, and then something happened. I started to notice that, there is a difference between, let's say, Yngwie, who's a guitarist. That's all about technique and, and the ability. But there's a difference between that and songwriting. That's a whole different arena. And I started to sort of discover that, I had this question, like, which one is more difficult? To write a song that is technically difficult, which that's what I was doing at the time, like, like weird time signatures and just weird, difficult stuff, right? Or write a song that can touch people, that people remember. And I started to realize, actually, that's harder. It's because it's harder to write something that simple yet still original and just makes you feel some way. And I realized, like, okay, there is something there. So actually, from heavy metal, I went back into the Beatles and all those kind of bands to understand, like, okay, how does this happen? What happens? What makes somebody, like, a song to a soundtrack to your life, that you will remember the song for the rest of the life? And I started to go into that direction. So I left behind the technical stuff, and I went into more like, okay, I want to understand songwriting.
The technical stuff is interesting from performance singer watching and listening, but to me, man, for me, and I'm not a musician, my dad was, I always wanted to be. I couldn't sing, couldn't play lead guitar, tried the bass, didn't apply myself. My parents would buy me a drum kit. Bottom line, I just didn't have any musical ability. But when I gravitate towards music, it's something that I feel, not just listen to, but it moves me inside. And that's what Death Punch, I mean, you feel that with what you guys do.
Yeah, that's basically the idea there, that, it's all about songwriting. And for us, I think what makes Death Punch interesting is that, I'm European and I have those European influences. And the rest of the guys are American and they have these American influences. And if you look at European music and American music, there's one fundamental difference. In Europe, the background music, so to speak, that what we live with is classical. Okay. And when you look at classical music, it's all about, harmonies, how they relate to each other. And you look at American music, it's more like comes from rhythm and blues. And even the metal bands, like Pantera, it's all about the groove and the feel. Yeah. And so to me, it's like if you combine those two, now you have something special. Now you're universal. Now you don't sound typically American, and you don't sound typically European. So that was kind of the idea, that these two words merged, so you have that musical, diversity of both continents, and then, of course, the lyrics have to connect.
All right, got to take a minute here to thank another fine sponsor of the Steve Austin Show, Loot Crate. And Loot Crate's part of the greatest tag team in crate history, the WWE Slam Crate. It's a bi-monthly mystery subscription service for fans of the WWE Universe. And the third crate is ready to order now. This one is all about the road to WrestleMania, which is less than a month away. And this special Loot Crate celebrates the superstars who live, eat, breathe, and sleep this journey. And I'm not just talking about the stars who will be in the squared circle on April 2nd in Orlando, Florida. I'm talking about the past WrestleMania stars, too. And that's why this crate is loaded with exclusive items featuring The Rock, Seth Rollins, Charlotte, and many other WWE superstars. There's also an authentic T-shirt that you can't get anywhere else. So sign up at lootcrate.com/Austin by March 19th at 9 p.m. PST, or you'll miss it and you will regret it. So go to lootcrate.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin at checkout to get $3 off your Road to WrestleMania Slam Crate now. That's lootcrate.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin to save $3. But do it now, because once that March 19th deadline passes, so does your chance to get this crate. Order now at lootcrate.com/Austin. How has your songwriting evolved from when you first started writing songs into now? Because you're one of the main songwriters in the band.
Well,
how do you set about it? Do you think lyrically first, or the music first?
It's the music comes first always, and basically how we started, I kind of wrote the first record, because somebody had to start a band, so it wasn't anything other than, well, somebody had to start laying the bricks, and I was the guy who like, okay, I'm gonna start this band. So I wrote about 90% of the first record, and then I find the drummer Jeremy, and then we really.
Okay, where'd you find Jeremy at? Because all of a sudden, that's one
Believe
thing I
it or not.
remember. You're trying to put all the pieces together, and you're looking to define your sound or what you have in your mind. So you come across Jeremy Spencer. What'd you like about him?
So basically, that Jeremy is actually the whole band is an interesting story, but Jeremy is specifically interesting because what happened. He actually answered an ad in Musician's Friend or whatever, one of these magazines that, you can put ads like I'm looking for a drummer or this and that, right? So I just put an ad on it and he answered that ad. But once I went to see him, he played a show somewhere and I went to see him, I realized like, oh my God, I saw this guy before. In fact, he was playing with a very good friend of mine, I think he plays for Bon Jovi now. They were in a band together, and I remember telling him, like, man, your drummer is a badass. I'm like, I wish I could have the drummer. And it was like 5-6 years prior. So now I go to see him, and I recognize, oh my God, this is the guy that I saw 5-6 years ago in that band. So, we hit it off immediately, and then I already had like 9-10 songs, and then the two of us kind of worked out everything, and then slowly we built the band from there. We grabbed the guys that we thought were good, and it was pretty much like like you build a SWAT team, right? You need somebody who's good with a rocket launcher, you need somebody who's good with a sniper gun, somebody for close quarter combat, so it's kind of like all the members have to be really specific and very, very good at what they do, and that was sort of the idea. And then we wrote the music, and then because then we give it to the singer. But the reason for that, because we have this belief, if you write a song and if you listen to this song without lyrics and it's already good, you already have a song. Now if the vocalist understands the vibe and will write lyrics that coincides with the song and the feeling of the song, now you really have something. And that's kind of how we worked, because I'm a big fan of films, people who write film scores, like Hans Zimmer and Ennio Morricone. These guys are writing scores, and if you watch a movie and if the score is wrong, it's freaking horrible. You can tell, like, oh my God, what the hell happened there? So a good score is when you wrote a score, you watch the movie, you don't actually notice the score. Sometimes you notice the score because it's so good that it adds to the movie. Then you really have something, right? And if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, then it's wrong, right? So now, taking the same logic, if you write a song, I already have sort of emotions and pictures and a story in my head, and I write the soundtrack. That's the song. Then I give it to Ivan, the vocalist, and say, okay, I was thinking this or that. I tell him like what was the idea of the song, and then then let's see his jump start, and that's kind of how we put it together.
What happens when you and Jeremy Spencer hook up? I got to ask you this: was he a Kiss fan at all?
Oh
when he
my
did the
God.
skeleton with the makeup, and I'm thinking, man, he was.
No, all my band members, they Jeremy, Jason, and Chris Cale. These three guys, they have Kiss posters. I mean, like, they're all of them big Kiss fans. It's pretty crazy. In fact, but the funny thing is, actually, we did a tour with Kiss, right?
Yeah.
And to these guys, that was their dream come true. I mean, I talked to Gene. He's Hungarian. He speaks Hungarian. He speaks my language, so we could talk a little bit. It was kind of funny that we both speak Hungarian, and here we are in Europe. Massive shows, Kiss. These guys are lifelong Kiss fans, right? We got beat the hell up by the Kiss fans. Oh my God, that was the worst show we ever had. I mean, we go out there, and it's a really friendly environment because we're all friends with those guys, and like, well, let's do it. And the Kiss fans come to see Kiss. Right. They don't care. They look at your band like, you are the problem here, because you're the band between me and seeing Kiss. Yeah. You're the obstacle. You need to go. That's kind of why they look at you. So it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter what you play. They look at you that you need to go, because as long as you're on stage, I can't see Kiss. Yeah. So, everybody was just standing there looking at us like, what the hell? And after like 2 shows, we were like, you know what? Since we're doing it anyway, and it doesn't feel good, let's play the most brutal, heaviest song we got. So we changed our set into the absolute brutal song. I mean, we have some really heavy songs. So we made a set out of the heaviest songs, and we just went out there like, you know what? If you guys gonna hurt us, we're gonna hurt you. So we went out there and just the most brutal, 25, 30 minutes we can do, and that was our Kiss tour. But they're huge fans. I mean, they all have Kiss tattoos.
But they're my favorite band growing up, and
okay.
Gene and Paul always stayed straight and stayed off all the stuff, and Peter and H kind of would get a little lost along the way. But as businessmen, that's why I always kind of respected what they did, and man, they were kind of like the kings of merchandise back in the day, because they're the ones that really started exploiting that. But anyway, moving on to, you went through 2 guitars and then ended up with Jason Hook. When the first guitar left, the second guitar left. I mean, what happened with the transition between those 2 guys? Did they just walk away and say, hey, this ain't what we want to do? Was there a personality conflict? And then here comes Jason, who's trademark sound.
So, we have so many funny stories. Like this story, what happened when I found Jeremy, right, to Dad. Originally, he gave me a CD, like, here's my playing, right? So he gave me this CD that he was playing on. Actually, after I went to see him, he gave me the CD that the latest work he had, and the guitarist on that CD was Jason. And I actually asked him, like, Jeremy was already joining me in this band, and I'm like, oh my God, who's that guitarist? He's good. And he's like, well, we can't get him. He's one of my best friends in the world, but he plays for Alice Cooper, and he's a good live, tours the world, plays massive arenas. We can't get him. Like, okay, but fast forward, later we got him. But so we had Caleb. At the time, Caleb was like 17 years old. This kid was super talented. I mean, like, long blonde hair, he looked the part, and he could play any instrument. I mean, the guy was a genius. Caleb Bingham, that was his name. But he was 17 years old. He couldn't get into a club with us. So, so everybody was like, okay, this is going to be a problem. And so because he was really young, and if he felt like, okay, there's an age gap, you know what I mean? He's a kid compared to us. This could become a problem. So it wasn't anything else but an amicable split of like, you know what, it's not going to work because we don't even have the when culturally you have a generation gap. It's just weird. And then we got Daryl, who was the guitarist for Wasp at the time. So he came in, and
Wasp fan.
Yeah, me too. I was a huge Wasp fan. And so he was our guitarist for a while, and there were some personality clashes between him and and Ivan, the singer. And there was some substance abuse and this and that. We eventually got to the point like, okay, this is not gonna work. And then we reached out to Jason, and we were like, okay, well, now the band is rolling. What do you think? And he's like, you know what? It's a great gig, and I have to give it to Jason because he had a good life. He was getting paid. He's a touring musician. Flies first class, stays in the nicest hotel. And we said, like, well, we're a low band. We can't really give you that life, or at least not yet. We can, pay you a little bit, so you can stay alive, but that's it. And he's like, you know what? I don't want to be a hired gun, and he's been a hired gun his whole life because his original bands just didn't, catch on. But he says, like, I'm gonna play guitar instead of working at a gas station. So he would pick up these all kind of gigs, and so he's a touring musician. And I said, but that's not what I want to do. I want to write music. I want to be in a band for real. And so I'm gonna give up that life. So actually, he took a hit. He was living in a low sublet apart. I mean, like, his life collapsed for about a year. And he stuck it out, and we took him in with open arms. The record that we were writing, the second record, we were just writing it, and we were like, you know what? Any idea you have, bring it. And he became immediately a full partner. So we just took him in, and it worked out. I mean, he's one of my favorite guitarists in the world.
I love his tone. I love the way he sounds.
Yeah.
What about what happened to the original bass player and end up with Chris Cale?
Original bass guitarist, same thing there. He was running off the rails, and once the band is becoming big, you have responsibilities. Now
it's got to be about the band, not about you.
Exactly. It becomes exactly the band is bigger than you, and also once when you play in low clubs and you don't show up or you fall off stage, it's okay. You start to play big, there are 2,000-3,000 people now. You can't do that, Then and there's a responsibility that comes with that. So there's same thing, and I have to give it to him. By now he's sobered up. I think he went to rehab and whatnot. But at the time he was not. He was bad. And when people have hangovers, they're angry.
Yeah.
So that started to boil to the point where okay, we have to make a change, and then he we got Chris Gale.
How'd you find him? Did you answer an ad?
He was two friends. He lived in Vegas. His story, like he started from Kentucky driving to LA to make it in the music business. His car broke down in Vegas. I'm not even kidding. And he's stuck there for the next 8 years. So he was a bartender at Hard Rock Cafe or Hard Rock Casinos and playing in local bands. And since we are all in Vegas now, he heard through the grapevine that something is going on, and he just reached out. He had a massive beard down his belly button, and he cut his beard. He's like, it's not gonna happen. I'm done. I'm just gonna try to do my run a business of some kind. And right there, he hears the news that we split for a bass guitarist, and he's like, oh man, I just cut my beard. But he's like, I'll reach out, and he hit up Jason on Facebook, like, I'm your guy, trust me, I'm your guy. So we brought him in to audition. He shows up in a Muay Thai shirt. He knows that I do martial arts. I'm like, oh, you do Muay Thai. So now immediately, we have a conversation. You're like, okay, all right. And he was just the nicest guy, and that's probably the best decision we ever made. It's like he's nicer than any of us, actually. He's the nicest guy, really. And that's kind of how the whole thing came together.
What about the deal of bringing Ivan in? Because I was watching some Motograder videos before I came and saw you, and I'd heard about Motograder for a long time, but never really listened to much of their music. Man, the guy has an outstanding voice and a dynamic presence. And like you said, talking about the score to the movie, he's a hell of a vocalist. How did you go about saying, okay, this is a guy that could be the voice?
I saw Ivan with his Motograder. I saw with him his previous band, and I always thought, like, man, that guy has something. He has something special. And literally, I was watching Motograder because I thought, like, this would be the voice. I had a vision. I knew what I wanted to do musically. I knew the style, the vocal style. So this was a complete vision, like what this band should sound like, And so I thought, like, he would be the perfect voice for it. But he was in Motograder. And then I saw that Motograder start to have no gigs, and then I knew that there is a problem. And I literally kind of stalked him on Facebook, like what's happening with him. And then I just reached out to him. We had a mutual friend, so we met before. We had a couple of conversations. So I reached out to him like, hey man, are you interested in doing anything in the music industry? And he was like, well, you know what, I'm really disgusted by how everything runs, and and he's like, I'm just laying on a couch and I don't think I'm gonna get up from this couch anymore. Like, he was really down about he had a shot and it just didn't work out. And music industry is really cutthroat. It's merciless. Probably similar to you know what I'm talking about. It's it's cutthroat. And so he was really disgusted by this. But I started to send him some tracks, and he heard something. He's like, you know what? This is actually interesting. And then we flew him into Los Angeles, right? At this point, he was literally couch surfing, And so I bought him a ticket. He flew him to Los Angeles for an audition. He wrote a couple of songs on the music we sent him. So we did the audition, and we knew, like, okay, this is going to work. So I told him, like, hey, Ivan, you sound really great live. We should go to the studio and see how's your recorded voice, right? So we go to the studio. He records one song. Like, man, that sounds really good. Let's record another one. He recorded another one. Oh my God, let's do a heavy one. How you sound like when it's heavy? He does a heavy one. Okay, how about a mid tempo? He doesn't even notice that we were like 4 or 5 songs in now, right? And I just canceled his ticket out. We literally kidnapped him, so he had no way to leave, right? And basically we got him up to we were 9 songs in. By the time he realized, like, dude, I already did a whole record. I'm like, yep. You almost did a whole record. And then he had to leave for whatever. He went somewhere to Atlanta, I think. Then he calls me from Atlanta, like, man, I got robbed by a stripper. Can you fly? Of course, Ivan, right? Can you fly me back to Los Angeles? I'm like, sure. And we flew him back. We finished the record, and basically
Is that the way of the fist?
Yeah, that's the way of the fist.
I'll be damned.
Yeah. Yeah, all the guitars on that album was recorded in my bedroom in my underwear with a mug of coffee. We didn't go to the studio. Only thing we did in the studio was vocals and some of the drums. Yeah, actually the drums we did in the studio and the vocals. That's it. Everything else in my bedroom. So that's a do-it-yourself record, literally homemade. Today sold like, I don't know, 700,000 copies or somewhere there.
So what's the dynamic when, okay, you're the founder of the band, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, when you listen to interviews, which Chris Kelly, everybody else, they kind of everybody says it's 5 alpha males, and you know the sum is greater than parts, but it's 5 different personalities blended for the same cause. Obviously, things can go wrong. You've got 5 egos there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, look at the Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
One of the greatest bands of all time, and they're flying on private jets to make a gig, to do a show.
5 different private jets.
So
right?
here's the thing: are you like? Well, everybody's almost about the same age. I don't call you the elder statesman, but you're the statesman or the founder with a martial arts background, but also you're a man of reason. How do you keep the peace? Who's the judge, jury, and executioner as far as making everything work and keep harmony within 5 different personalities?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, basically, when we started the band, I had a very strict, very solid idea what I wanted to do. And this is like my 20th brand, so it's not like you don't just win an Olympic medal. You have to, you have to run in the high school track first and do all those things. So I did bands after bands after bands, and I just learned a lot about what to do and what not to do. And one of the things, believe it or not, I was like, you know what? Every time I wanted to be the nice guy, I wanted to be, this is a democracy, we are a band, and, let's do it that way. And it always became an argument and a clash of egos. So this time it was like, look, guys, here's the music. I already wrote this. Here's the direction. This is what I want to do. If this is the direction you want to go to, then we are a band. If not, then this is not the band for you, because I'm not going to later argue about, hey, let's throw some jazz fusion in there, because it's not going to happen, right? So it started. That was the foundation, right? And then it took years and years. Like in the beginning, especially once we hit the road, I was the only sober guy in the band. Everybody else was out of their minds. So somebody had to be the business mind. Somebody had to run the show, sort of, and then the guys, as they sobered up and we learned each other's personalities, I could actually start stepping back, and it actually became a really functioning, pretty much a democracy now, that that everybody have their own what they're really good at, what they do. So we try to sort of allocate who does what and when, and so everybody has their own things what they do. When it comes to the business deals and reading contracts and whatnot, I'm the guy that I love doing business. I love the chess game of business. So I'm still the guy, but it's not like there's a business decision to be. It's a day operation. I'll make the decision. If there's something that affecting everybody, or it's a bigger decision, then it's okay. Hey guys, what do you think? And then we vote. And then to keep out the egos, I mean, we did a lot of things right. From the beginning, we were like, okay, doesn't matter who writes the song, we're going to split equally.
There you go.
Because what happens, bands usually, go out there and they write their first record, and you start to realize, like, the guy who wrote the songs driving a Ferrari, the rest of the guys still living with their moms. So, and that's where, problems start coming. So from the beginning, we were like, okay, we're going to split everything equally. It also assures that the best songs will make the record, because later on, now that, okay, if I don't write a song, then I don't make any money, then I have to write songs. And sometimes people who are not really good at that will force their way in, or, that's how the bands fight happens. So we knew this. So from the get-go, we were like, no. The best song has to win. And how we decide what the best song is, we're going to vote for it. So it's really funny that we are a rock band, but almost like it's a corporate, structure of like, no, we're going to vote. What's your vote? And, if it's a tie, then we have a producer to break the tie. And that's kind of how we operate. And then when it comes to bigger business decisions, I have an influence, because they know that generally I read every word, and, they know that I'm passionate about, again, the chess game. So they know that, so I have an influence, but still I have one vote. So if they really feel strongly about something, I would have to convince them why not to do, or why to do something. So it's about intelligence and presenting my case. Like, okay, I think, guys, we should do this. And here are the reasons. And if I can convince them, then that's what it goes. If I can't, if they feel really strong, then I'm outvoted, and then that's that. And that this is the only way you can operate a band that it survives.
Right. Okay, before we continue on here with Zoltan Bathory, a five-finger death punch, let me show a little appreciation to one of the sponsors who let me do this show for you twice a week for free, and that's Dollar Shave Club. Now, y'all know that I have a ton of Dollar Shave Club razors around 316 and 317 Gimmick Street. I brought them over to the rental house because Dollar Shave Club gives you a close, smooth shave at a great price. And y'all know how much I love saving money. So why settle for a cheap bag of disposable razors and paying through the nose for a razor with 17 blades and a laser pointer when there's a better option? DollarShaveClub.com/Steve offers you that missing middle ground. You no longer have to choose between a painful shave with a disposable razor or win the lottery just to pay for the latest shaving breakthrough. Dollar Shave Club offers the best of both worlds without breaking your bank or your face. You get a premium quality shave at the disposable shave price. And if you haven't tried Dollar Shave Club yet, you're missing out. It's an amazing shave at an affordable price. There's no smarter choice on the market. And right now, they're giving away a 1-month trial of any of their razors for just $1 with free shipping. And after that, it's just a few bucks. And after that, it's just a few bucks a month. There's no long-term commitments, no hidden fees, and you can cancel whenever you want. So get your $1 trial started at DollarShaveClub.com/Steve. That's DollarShaveClub.com/Steve.
So far in 2017, Forbes and Podcast One have already launched 3 highly acclaimed shows. The Interview with Steve Bertoni features the business world's most interesting names, like Adam Carolla, Twitter founder Sean Rad, and Hollywood's own Jessica Alba.
So I spent a lot of my childhood in hospital bed.
Under 30 with Steve Goldblum talks to the movers and shakers, like Nation Builder CEO Jim Gilliam and NFL Big Game winner Martellus Bennett.
Guys are afraid to be themselves because of their marketing deals.
And The List with Art of Charms, Jordan Harbinger.
We'll get behind-the-scenes insight and information that doesn't make the print cut.
Next up, Sports Money with Mike Ozanian talking to team owners, athletes, and industry leaders about the enterprise and money behind supreme athletic competition. Forbes on Podcast One. Not just entertaining, informative. Subscribe now at iTunes, and don't forget to rate, review, and share.
Okay, talk about your background a little bit into the mixed martial arts, because I was reading, as a kid, I guess your parents got you involved in judo. I guess you were pretty... Well, you say, on your website, you're a thrill seeker. I mean, you're a high-energy kid, so they got you involved in judo. Is it because of your background in judo and then into the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, just your pursuit of mixed martial arts, that just as a lifestyle, from what that embodies, you decided not to enjoy alcohol or get involved in the drug scene, because both are so prevalent in the music, entertainment / whatever, wrestling scene there is?
Absolutely true. Well, that story, it started with, I was actually a really tiny kid. So when I went to school, I was probably the smallest kid in school, and it's kind of like probably the same here. You go to school, and there are going to be the fightings, and and basically people figure out the hierarchy of school, who's the alpha, who's falling where, the natural selection start, and. In my country, actually, it's really funny. I never been taken to school when I was in kindergarten. And we're talking about like a 5-year-old kid. They showed me where the kindergarten is, and I said, okay, it was about 3 miles from my house. You never see this in America. I was 4-5 years old walking to kindergarten every day. Myself.
Yeah.
So I would walk there, and then I walk home after that. So it's completely normal. At the time, at least it was. Nobody takes their kids to school.
Yeah.
You walk. And so when I got both my parents are military, and professionals like the officers, and so my father was kind of like a proud, big, muscle dude, and he was, when school time came, I was, going to school. He's like, okay, kid, so here's the school. It's about 2-3 miles away. Here's your backpack. When you go to school, they're going to be fighting. If you get beat up and you come home crying, I'll kick your ass, because I'm not going to complain to the school or some other parents so that you get beat up. So you fight. You defend yourself. And I'm like, oh man, that's a license to kill. So I go to school, whenever I pick up a lead pipe, because why not,
Yeah.
And then and then I went to school. And I was the smallest kid, and I was picked on, of course, immediately. And I handled my business. 2 weeks later, my parents pretty much regretted that they gave me the license. And they were like, but at this time, there was no stopping. I was kind of like, disgusted by, I was a really, really aware kid, So at 7, I was disgusted by the whole, like this gang up on, there's a big difference between a 7 and a 14 years old kid.
Yeah.
And we're in the same school, So I'm like, I'm going to equalize my, my chances here. So lead pipe was my best friend, and, some kneecaps were, gone. And I was just fighting. And soon I developed at the time in this personality, like, look, if you hit me, you expect a nuclear war. So I teach you a lesson that you'll never again, and you will tell your friends too, that don't mess with that kid because it's bad news.
Right.
And that was my attitude. Like, you beat me down, you might win, but watch your back. Because you have to kill me because I will come back for you. And so that stopped everything. Like, but now I started to do, like, I started to see other kids being picked on. So now I would go and I started to beat up bullies. So I was just after the bullies, and I started to go like literally, and I was looking for them. Like, oh, you're messing with that kid? Okay, mess with me, and let's see what happens. And my parents figured out, like, okay, there's a problem here. And then they were like, let's put him into some martial arts school or something. And judo is an Olympic sport. Schools are everywhere. So I went to judo clubs and started to compete when I was a little kid. And that was then that was my thing. And once the martial art disciplines you, I also started to gain the skills. So now I know that I can kick your ass. Then I didn't have to anymore,
Right.
So I didn't have to go there. And it just kind of like evened me out. But so somehow I ended up being, and I'm really lucky for this. I feel really fortunate that I was academically on the top of my class. I was going to science classes and, working for an observatorium when I was a little kid already, So I was excelling and winning math competitions and all that stuff. But physically, I was going to judo, I was playing soccer, I was really active. So I never became the nerd that most of the, academic kids are. But in the same time, I wasn't like a knucklehead that, I'm just fighting and, So I was really fortunate that I ended up in somewhere in the middle, and it gave me that balanced life. And then from there, it's just carried through my, I was getting into Bruce Lee and the philosophy and, and then I seek out. I became, well, in quote, I don't believe anything ism, but I became sort of a Buddhist when I was like 12 years old because I found things and I started to research and, so it gave me this whole martial arts, Buddhism, energy, science in the same time, and seeing how this all connect. And I started to see these patterns like, okay, technically, whatever you do, this is about your attitude. How you look at things. This is about your attitude and how you look at life. And if you start understanding these patterns, then it doesn't actually matter what you do. You can be a wrestler, a martial artist, a guitarist, anything. If you understand the patterns are the same. So this kind of gave me the toolbox, and it helped me when it came to the band. The original question, like how does it apply, is that it's kind of like you don't do martial arts. You are a martial artist. There's a difference. It's not something you do.
Gotcha.
It's something you are. So once you are this person, then I look at everything with those goggles. So in martial arts, we know that if you get beat down, you only lost the fight if you stop standing up. Until you keep standing up, you're still in the fight, right? And anything can happen. So that's kind of the martial art attitude. And if you apply that to anything in life, how many bands I had that didn't go anywhere, how many times, we sent or give tapes and music to people, how many times we tried and, but I knew that the only way I lose if I stop doing that.
Right.
As long as I'm pretty sure that Edison, tried to figured out the light bulb a million times. And, by the time you get there, you failed 1,000 times. You have to. So that's kind of what martial art gave me.
When did the jiu-jitsu come in the picture?
Jiu-jitsu came in, I was on tour already here with this band, maybe like 10 years ago. And a couple of my friends were jiu-jitsu practitioners. And since it was a festival, we were like, hey, let's get, they knew that I did judo. So we were like, hey, let's train, So we started to train together. And on this tour, we would have this air-conditioned little tent. I remember Jägermeister had a promotion or something, and they had a tent, and they gave it to us every morning. So we put our little mats, and we would train. And I started to see, like, okay, this is pretty cool. I mean, I was aware of jiu-jitsu. Yeah. I was aware of the UFC. I was aware of the Veil Judo. I was aware of all these things happening. But personally, I never did jiu-jitsu. It's very similar to judo, Judo is more sophisticated than stand-up. Judo is the derivation and then development of the ground the ground fighting of judo developed into what jiu-jitsu is, and became extremely sophisticated. But so I wasn't familiar with that. I had the judo ground, but I didn't have the
Was that a natural transition for you?
It's an interesting story because it wasn't, even though it's really close to each other. Because what jiu-jitsu became, like for example, as a judo guy, there's no reason I'm ever, for any reason, going to be on the bottom. And jiu-jitsu guys fight from the bottom, and it's super dangerous from the bottom, right? And for me, I would be super uncomfortable because if somebody pins you down in a judo match, you lose, right? So there's a short period of time that you can be held down, and then you lose. That's a rule. So if we go to the ground, most of the time, if you are even, then they're gonna stand you up and start over, or you pin somebody and you win the fight. So for me to get on my back, it's an unheard of. Like wrestlers, you just simply don't go to your back. So and then I was always super aggressive, super heavy, top, pushing from the top, and I had to understand that jiu-jitsu guys were using that against me. Like every force, I'm like, holy shit, how did I get locked up? But, this particular tour, I was kind of learning, and a friend of mine said like, hey, I'm really good friends with Hoist Gracie. And I'm like, oh my God, of course I knew who Hoist was. Yeah. And it's like, I can get you a training session with Hoist. I'm like, okay. And so I go. We got to California, the tour, and then they hooked me up, like, let's go to the academy, and you get to meet Hoist, and you get to train. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. So I go to the academy with my friends, and we're sitting there. It's like a couple of his black belts, right? And all of a sudden, the door flings open. Hoist comes in like bat out of hell, angry as hell, and he's like, "Cuz, what the fuck?" He's angry. I'm like, "Oh God, this is not starting good, right?" And he's upset or angry about something, and it's like looking around at everybody. I'm gonna kick somebody's ass today, and everybody's like, these are all his black belts. He's like, you know what? I kind of have a knee problem. I think I'm not gonna train today. Everybody's sort of like sneaking away, and he looks at me. Hey, you, let's put on a gi. Let's go. I'm like, oh my, and I'm looking at my friends like, save me. I'm like, what the, are you guys kidding me? You dropped me in this thing, right? And this guy's angry, he's gonna kill me. I mean, like, look what happened to Akibono. He's 400 pounds, what am I gonna do, right? And so we go to the mat, and up until the moment we bump fists, like, okay, let's go, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be bad. He looks at me, I'm just kidding, dude. And he started laughing, but he sold it all the way. I'm like, oh my God, you're kidding me, right? And so we trained a little bit, and it was incredible. I mean, it was incredible how tight, and it was impossible. And I'm thinking like, I'm a judo black belt. I got this, right? No. I mean, I had no chance of any, and I just could not go anywhere. So I really, literally, I experienced from one of the best ever, what this is. And I was joking, like, okay, give me a white belt, I'll take off the black belt from the judo, give me a white belt, I start jiu-jitsu. And literally I started jiu-jitsu. I went back to Vegas after the tour, and then I signed up in a club.
So what level are you at now?
I have purple belt now. So I'm 7 years in, somewhere around there.
So what's the next belt?
Brown belt and then black belt, yeah. Purple belt is probably the belt that you have the longest. Like, you have the white belts, that's like the wild west. Those guys don't know what they're doing, and they're super dangerous because they don't know what they're doing, right? And then you get the blue belts who are pretty good. They have the basics down, and and then you get purple. You learn everything about jiu-jitsu by the purple belt. And the brown and the black is pretty much on the brown belt, you just tighten things up. At black belt, you become a teacher, how to also teach, and now you have the philosophical understanding of jiu-jitsu. So, but purple belt knows exactly the same as a black belt. It just, the execution is not precise.
All right, everybody, give me the go home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. I want to thank Zoltan Bathory of Five Finger Death Punch for giving me a little bit of his time, and had a good time talking to him and hanging out on his yacht. Part 2 of Zoltan will be next Tuesday. Remember, coming up this Thursday, part 2 of my conversation with the one and only Rip Rogers. I got a lot of feedback from Rip dropping knowledge on the Steve Austin Show podcast, and if you got any questions or comments, send them to questions@steveaustonshow.com. Part 2 of Zoltan Bathory of Five Finger Death Punch will be next Tuesday. This coming Thursday, part 2 with Rip Rogers. Hey, man, I told you guys I was releasing about 8 brand new shirts from the Broken Skull Ranch. All the stuff you see me wear at the Broken Skull Challenge, and they're released. They're at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin and BrokenSkullRanch.com. Check them out there. Some badass stuff. And if you're looking for the best damn IPA available, get the Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. Stop in a brewery if you're in L.A. Pick it up at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California. Or you can order from InsideTheCellar.com if you live in a state that they ship to. And you can find everything at BrokenSkullRanch.com that is Steve Austin related, and that includes the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife. I got to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, because that's how I'm able to do this podcast for you free twice a week. And you can find all my sponsors at PodcastOne.com. Just click on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page and then click on the Steve Austin Show banner. So thanks to DDP Yoga. Go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get 25% off your DDP Yoga program and all the DDP Yoga related merch. Loot Crate. Go to lootcrate.com/Austin and use the promo code Austin to get $3 off the Road to WrestleMania Slam Crate. Dollar Shave Club. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Steve to start your month-long trial for just $1 with free shipping. Hanes. Go to Hanes.com and use the promo code FRESH-AUSTIN to get 25% off your purchase of Hanes with Fresh IQ products. And just a reminder that the Steve Austin Show is also a participant in the Amazon Associates program, and an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for me to earn fees by linking to Amazon.com. You can link to Amazon at PodcastOne.com by clicking on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page. And coming up on Thursday, like I said, the second part of my conversation with Rip Rogers, and this time we're talking about Puerto Rico, the caravan tours in Germany, Macho Man Randy Savage, and Billy Robinson. Hey, the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until then, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.